You a member here, don't make me laugh. Old man, you don't belong on this dock. The words hit like cold steel across the warm coastal breeze. Laughter followed instantly. Mocking, sharp, effortless. The Crestline Yacht Club stood in all its pristine, whitewashed glory, overlooking the sparkling blue water. The docks, lined with luxury yachts, gleamed under the late afternoon sun. But the air today was thicker, heavy with arrogance. Marcus Daniels stood motionless for a second. Faded boat shoes, wrinkled khaki pants, simple gray polo shirt. The perfect target. The man who had spoken tall, early 30s. Muscles straining against his tailored linen shirt, grinned broadly, turning to his equally smug friends at the outdoor bar. This place has standards. Try the public pier down the road. The group chuckled cruelly. Marcus said nothing. He calmly kept walking toward the entrance. Inside, at the polished marble desk, Sarah, the young blonde receptionist, spotted him instantly. Her lips tightened into a thin, forced smile. "I'm sorry, sir," she said coolly, barely looking up. "This is a private members-only yacht club." Marcus met her gaze evenly. "I'd like to inquire about membership." A sharply dressed older gentleman leaned in next to him, shaking his head with pity. "Waste of time, buddy. You'd never get in. There's a certain image we expect." Marcus smiled faintly. No reaction, no anger. Sarah's voice iced over. "You don't meet our membership standards, sir." The sentence echoed across the grand lobby like a silent verdict. Marcus nodded slowly, glanced once back toward the docks, and walked out without another word. Behind him, the same smug voice called out, "Better luck at the public marina, old-timer." Narrator barely above a whisper. They laughed. They judged. They dismissed. But within hours, the Crestline Yacht Club would never be the same again. They called him an outsider. They had no idea how far outside their world he had started. Mobile, Alabama, a sun-scorched dockyard town where the only yachts Marcus Daniels had ever seen were distant white specks against the deep blue water. "Look, Daddy, who owns those boats?" A small boy, maybe 7, barefoot and wide-eyed, stared from the worn wooden pier. His father knelt down beside him. "Not us, son," he said with a soft chuckle, ruffling Marcus's hair. "But maybe one day, someone like you will." Marcus never forgot those words. As a teenager, he worked every brutal job imaginable, hauling crates at the shipyard, scrubbing decks for rich tourists, loading ice at the fish market at 4 a.m. Every dollar earned was saved. Every hour worked was a step closer. At 19, Marcus launched his first hustle, renting out beat-up fishing boats to weekend hobbyists. The rich men laughed when he docked his rusty, old boat next to their luxury vessels. "You'll never own one of these," they'd say, drinks in hand, sunglasses flashing under the southern sun. Marcus never answered. He only smiled and worked harder. By 30, Marcus owned 2 marinas. By 45, 21 more across Florida, the Carolinas, and New England. He became known as the ghost investor, the billionaire no one saw coming. No flashy cars, no yachts of his own, just quiet acquisitions, one harbor at a time. Marcus Daniels had one final target, the Crestline Yacht Club. The most exclusive, the most arrogant, the last place that still believed they could tell a man like him, "You don't belong." And today, they had just told him exactly that. Marcus did not rush. He returned as he had arrived, calm, deliberate, unwavering. But this time, everything had already been set into motion. The glass doors whispered open at his approach. The familiar blend of aged leather, polished mahogany, and sea salt filled his senses as he stepped onto the marble floor, where soft beams of late afternoon sun stretched like golden ribbons across the glossy surface. The quiet tapping of his boat shoes echoed faintly through the expansive lobby. Near the concierge desk, 2 sharply dressed men fell silent. The taller of the 2 leaned closer and whispered, "That's him again." Same guy from earlier. The second man, heavier, with a glinting gold Rolex and slicked-back silver hair, shook his head slightly as he stared. "Some people just don't know when they're not wanted," he muttered. Marcus walked on, unbothered. The gold-etched Crestline Yacht Club plaque behind the counter glowed under its private spotlight. Behind the desk, Sarah froze for a fraction of a second, then quickly adjusted the collar of her white blazer and greeted him with the same cold, professional smile. "Sir, I already explained," she said smoothly. "This is a private members-only club." "I'm aware," Marcus replied evenly. Before she could speak again, a smooth voice interrupted from the right. A tanned, silver-haired man in a tailored linen sport coat draped over his shoulders strolled forward, holding a glass of chilled white wine. He gave Marcus a brief, almost lazy scan. "You're back," he asked with a smirk as he adjusted his jacket. "I'll give you this, you're persistent. But surely by now you understand. Some circles aren't for everyone." Marcus tilted his head slightly and smiled faintly. "Interesting," he said calmly. The man chuckled softly. "There's a lovely public marina a couple of miles down the coast. Very casual. Might suit you better." Nearby, a bartender polishing a crystal glass paused to smirk and shake his head before resuming his task. Marcus stood quietly, letting the words pass. No rebuttal, no expression, just calm patience. Turning his gaze toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, he watched as the golden sunlight rippled across the marina's still waters. They had no idea. Not yet. The setting sun cast long shadows across the marina as Marcus stepped outside. The warm breeze carried the faint scent of salt and freshly varnished teakwood. The low hum of expensive engines and soft laughter floated across the docks. Marcus paused at the top of the stone steps leading down to the private slips. The perfect serenity of the scene was in sharp contrast to what had just occurred. From the corner of the outdoor bar, the man in the linen jacket watched him. He swirled the last sip of his wine, clearly satisfied. "Guess he finally got the hint," the man murmured to no one in particular. A young deckhand with a clipboard and Crestline uniform brushed past Marcus and barely spared him a glance. Another couple strolled by, the woman clutching an oversized designer tote. Her companion whispered something that made her giggle as they both cast amused glances toward Marcus. Marcus slowly descended the steps. The rhythmic creak of dock planks beneath his shoes matched the soft clinking of sailboat rigging in the breeze. He stopped at the edge of the dock. The water stretched out before him, painted with streaks of amber and indigo from the dying light. His gaze drifted from the anchored yachts to the fading horizon, calm, unmoved, waiting. The voice of his father echoed faintly in his memory. "Never show them anger, son. Make them wonder what you're thinking." Marcus smiled faintly. He turned, hands calmly folded behind his back, and walked away. Tomorrow, they would learn. The morning air was crisp as Marcus Daniels walked toward the Crestline Yacht Club. "Mr. Collins beside him in a tailored navy suit, silver cufflinks flashing briefly in the sun. At the valet station, a young attendant stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir," Pete Pinero. "Are you lost again? This is a private club." Marcus gave a soft nod, his calm gaze unwavering. "I know exactly where I am. Thank you." The attendant blinked, stunned into silence. Near the dock entrance, the same deckhand from the day before nudged his coworker. "That's the guy from yesterday," the coworker whispered back. "Didn't they send him packing? What's he doing here again?" As Marcus passed, the deckhand called out nervously, Sir, we really can't let non-members through." Marcus stopped briefly and smiled faintly. "I won't be needing a membership for much longer." From the upstairs veranda, the man in the linen jacket lowered his sunglasses, watching Marcus approach. "Persistent old dog," he muttered to his friend, a smug young man in designer sneakers. "I give him 5 minutes." The younger man laughed. "Doesn't know when he's out of his depth." Inside the grand lobby, the warm scent of cedar polish and ocean salt drifted around them. Behind the desk, Sarah stiffened, her hand gripping the edge of the polished counter. "Sir, as I explained yesterday, the Crestline is strictly private." Marcus motioned to Mr. Collins, who opened a leather briefcase and slid a single folded document across the counter. "What is this?" Sarah's voice wavered. A tall bartender drying glasses leaned toward a passing server. "Is that the guy everyone's been whispering about?" "Yeah," the server nodded. "Rumor is he owns half the marinas on the East Coast." The man in the linen jacket stepped inside, espresso in hand. Mid-sip, he froze as Sarah read the document. A well-dressed older woman near the lounge narrowed her eyes. "No way. No one just walks in and buys the Crestline?" Her companion whispered back, staring at Sarah's pale expression. "Look at her face." He did. The paper's contents were simple and devastating. Notice of acquisition, effective immediately. Ownership of the Crestline Marina and associated properties transfers to Mr. Marcus Daniels. The air shifted. The soft clink of glasses halted. Voices died. The man in the linen jacket stared, lowering his sunglasses to peer directly at Marcus. "You," he breathed. Marcus calmly clasped his hands behind his back. "Me." The silence stretched across the lobby. Tomorrow had arrived, and the lesson had begun. The linen jacket man recovered first. He stepped forward, his tone sharp. This is a joke, right? You can't seriously expect us to believe this. Marcus met his gaze calmly. You're standing on my dock. Believe what you want. The older woman from earlier approached cautiously. Mr. Daniels, you purchased the entire Marina. Why? Marcus smiled faintly. Because it was available, the server from the bar whispered to the bartender, wide-eyed. He really did it. I heard the board sign the deal last night. The bartender shook his head slowly. I told you, that man's the real thing. A younger man in a pastel polo with a gold membership pin stepped in aggressively. You can't just waltz in and take over. There are rules. There's a waiting list. Marcus nodded. I'm aware. I bought the list too. The group fell silent. Sarah cleared her throat, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Daniels, what happens now? Marcus glanced around, his eyes passing over the stunned crowd. Nothing changes. Weejer bury. The boats stay. The staff stays. Only the arrogance leaves. The linen jacket man stared, speechless. His companion pulled him aside, whispering furiously. You pushed him. Now look where we are. Marcus turned to leave, his voice carrying behind him. Good day, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. He walked out, calm and measured, leaving silence and disbelief in his wake. The next day, Marcus walked into the Crestline Marina office. Inside, two senior managers stood frozen mid-conversation. One, tall with graying temples, stiffened as Marcus approached. Sir, members only beyond this point. Marcus calmly handed him a folded document. Check again. The man unfolded it slowly. His eyes widened. You're the new owner. Marcus gave a single nod. We need to talk. The second manager, younger and sharper, stepped forward. There must be a mistake. The board. Marcus raised a hand slightly. The board approved. Your signatures are there. They exchanged uneasy glances. The younger one cleared his throat. What do you want from us? Marcus's tone remained even. Stability. Respect. Discretion. The operation continues. The culture does not. From the hallway, an assistant manager whispered to a colleague. That's the guy. The one they laughed out yesterday. Yeah, the colleague whispered back. Not laughing now. The senior manager slowly extended his hand. Welcome, sir. We look forward to working with you. Marcus shook it firmly. See that the message travels fast. Without another word, Marcus walked past them toward the docks, each step steady, leaving the stunned staff staring after him. Marcus stepped onto the docks, the morning sun casting sharp reflections off the calm water. As he walked, a maintenance worker looked up from scrubbing the teak decking. Sir, you can't be back here without clearance, the worker called nervously. Marcus stopped beside him, his gaze calm. That clearance came yesterday. Check the ownership documents. The worker blinked, mouth opening and closing wordlessly before lowering his eyes and stepping aside. Further down, a yacht broker with sunglasses and a clipboard intercepted Marcus. Excuse me, sir, this is an active sales area. I must ask you to leave. Marcus nodded politely. I'll stay. You work for me now? The broker stiffened. You're a matinator, Mr. Daniels. Can a Marina watches? Marcus smiled faintly. I am a Yoon. Nearby, a young woman adjusting a line on her boat whispered to a fellow boater. That's him, the guy who bought everything. The boater stared openly. Unbelievable. They said he was just some random outsider yesterday. At the end of the pier, the security guard, arms crossed, blocked Marcus's path. I've been told not to let non-members beyond this point. Marcus handed him a printed copy of the acquisition notice. Consider yourself told differently. The guard read, his face slowly paling. He stepped aside without another word. Marcus continued on, the sound of his measured footsteps mixing with the distant soft clink of rigging and lapping waves. The message was spreading. Marcus entered the administrative wing of the marina. The polished wood doors whispered shut behind him. The office manager stood up from behind her desk, startled. Sir, this area is restricted to management only. Marcus smiled calmly. I know. That includes me. The marina accountant stepped out of a nearby office, papers in hand. Are you Mr. Daniels, the new owner? I am, Marcus replied. The dockmaster, a gruff man with sun-weathered skin, frowned. No one told us. We had no time to prepare. I gave you all the time you needed, Marcus said evenly. The assistant office manager whispered nervously to a colleague. That's him. The one they said wasn't welcome. The colleague whispered back. Well, he owns it now. We better adjust fast. The office manager took a tentative step forward. What do you expect from us? Mr. Daniels. Marcus's gaze swept over the room. Nothing extraordinary. Preferring professionalism, discretion, efficiency, respect. The dockmaster crossed his arms. And if someone doesn't want to change, Marcus's expression didn't shift. They won't work here. A tense silence filled the space. The accountant finally nodded slowly. Understood. Welcome, sir. Sir. Marcus gave a small nod and turned toward the exit, leaving the room heavy with unspoken understanding. As Marcus walked back toward the main clubhouse, the same man in the linen jacket approached quickly, flashing a rehearsed smile. Mr. Daniels, allow me to personally welcome you to our little community, he said smoothly. If you ever need recommendations on the best wines for your yacht, I'm your man. Marcus regarded him for a long second. I don't own a yacht. The linen jacket man laughed awkwardly. Of course. But surely you'll want something to match the prestige. I'd be happy to introduce you to a few exclusive brokers. A woman with oversized sunglasses stepped in. Mr. Daniels, I run the summer charity gala. It would be an honor if you joined our committee. We have an opening. Marcus gave a polite nod. Thank you. I prefer to observe for now. Nearby, two men stood whispering. One gestured toward Marcus. Should we go over? We can't afford to be on the wrong side of this. The second man grimaced. We laughed at him yesterday. I doubt he'll forget. As Marcus passed, a junior member in a crisp blazer stepped forward nervously. Sir, if you're hiring, I'd be grateful for any opportunity. Marcus paused, studied him briefly, then nodded. Ambition is good. Respect matters more. The young man exhaled with visible relief. Marcus continued on, his pace steady. Conversations behind him resumed, now with cautious undertones. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone knew it. The afternoon sun glinted off the water as Marcus stepped back onto the docks. Two young Marina attendants paused their conversation as he passed. That's him, one whispered. The guy who bought the whole place. Ninamane Masou. No way, the other scoffed softly. I heard he's just leasing. Marcus slowed briefly. Ownership. Not lease, he corrected smoothly, then continued walking. They stared after him, stunned into silence. Farther down, a yacht owner polishing chrome fittings stopped and called out, Mr. Daniels, I just wanted to say, welcome. This place could use fresh leadership. Marcus nodded politely. Thank you. It will get it. On the far end of the pier, the linen jacket man and his friend stood watching. The friend whispered, Does he even own a boat? The linen jacket man smirked. Doesn't matter. He owns the dock. Marcus approached slowly. The linen jacket man cleared his throat and stepped forward. Mr. Daniels, perhaps we got off on the wrong foot, he offered with an ingratiating smile. Let me buy you a drink tonight. As new neighbors, Marcus met his eyes coolly. You misjudged me once. Don't do it twice. Without waiting for a reply, Marcus turned and walked away. The sound of his shoes tapping crisply against the dock as the sun dipped lower into the horizon. Marcus sat alone at a small table on the deck, the ocean breeze tugging gently at the corner of the white linen tablecloth. He sipped a glass of sparkling water, eyes scanning the calm horizon. A tall man with a yacht club crest on his blazer approached first. Mr. Daniels, I run the Crestline Golf Invitational. We'd be honored if you joined this season. Marcus replied evenly. I don't golf. Moments later, a heavy-set man with a booming voice leaned in. Marcus, we've got an exclusive investment fund. Private group. You'd be perfect for it. Marcus shook his head lightly. Not interested. Two women in designer sunglasses approached arm in arm. One smiled broadly. Mr. Daniels, have you considered sponsoring our summer yacht race? It's the event of the season. Marcus took another sip and glanced at them. No. They hesitated, exchanged quick glances, and retreated. Nearby, a thin, older gentleman whispered to his companion, They're all trying to pull him in now. Yesterday, they wouldn't have let him near the gate. The companion nodded grimly. They know who holds the keys now. Marcus sat quietly, untouched by the flurry of false warmth around him. The sun dipped lower into the water, casting long gold streaks across the deck. The next day, Marcus stepped onto the Marina deck. The atmosphere had changed. A young deckhand approached nervously. Good morning, Mr. Daniels. Can I get you anything coffee, newspaper? Marcus smiled faintly. No, thank you. As he walked, two older members stepped aside quickly. On whispered, he's early again. We should say something. The second hesitated, then called out, Mr. Daniels, lovely day for a stroll. The water's perfect today. Marcus nodded politely. So I see, near the lounge, a previously dismissive member stepped forward with an eager grin. Marcus, I'd love to show you my new yacht. Maybe we could take it out sometime. Marcus's gaze remained calm. I don't sail with strangers. The member flushed and stepped back awkwardly. From the veranda above, the linen jacket man watched, arms crossed, sunglasses lowered slightly. His companion murmured, They're all lining up now. The linen jacket man nodded slowly. Because they finally understand who owns the tide. Marcus continued walking along the dock, untouched by the attention. The soft creak of the wood beneath his shoes blending with the distant clink of sail rigging. The balance had shifted completely. Marcus stepped into the grand clubhouse one final time that week. Conversations hushed instantly. A senior manager approached first, clipboard in hand. Mr. Daniels, we've completed the staff restructuring as requested. Marcus nodded. Good trying to keep it professional. The manager hurried off. Near the bar, a woman who had previously ignored him offered a wide smile. Mr. Daniels, I never had the chance to properly introduce myself. If you ever wish to join our wine society. No, Marcus replied simply and kept walking. At a corner table, two longtime members whispered. Yesterday they laughed at him, one said quietly. The other shook his head. Today they hold their breath when he walks by. The linen jacket man stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. He gave Marcus a tight nod of acknowledgement. Marcus paused for just a moment. Remember this feeling, he said softly. The man's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Marcus exited the clubhouse slowly, every footstep deliberate, leaving behind a space filled with silent respect and careful avoidance. The lesson was complete. The golden evening light reflected off the still waters as Marcus stepped onto the dock. Two attendants stopped their conversation and stared. That's him, one whispered. The one they all ignored yesterday. Now they clear the way for him, the other murmured. Marcus walked steadily, each footstep soft against the weathered planks. He passed two older members who instinctively straightened and stepped aside. From the deck above, the linen jacket man stood silently, arms crossed, watching. His companion whispered. He never even raised his voice. The linen jacket man nodded slowly. Didn't need to. Marcus reached the end of the dock, paused, and looked out over the marina. The sun cast long streaks of amber across the water. Behind him, hushed conversations resumed, cautious and subdued. Marcus stood still, hands clasped behind his back, taking in the view. The boats rocked gently. The faint clink of metal on metal blended with the distant call of seagulls. Without a word, he turned and walked back toward the clubhouse, leaving only the sound of soft footsteps and stunned silence in his wake. The next morning, the familiar sound of footsteps echoed across the marble floors of the Crestline lobby. Members looked up sharply. Marcus Daniels entered with Mr. Collins walking calmly beside him, holding a slim briefcase. Two members near the front desk froze. That's him, one whispered. The guy they threw out. The second shook his head slowly. Not anymore. Sarah, standing behind the desk, paled as Marcus approached. Sir, Mom. You, Mr. Collins opened the briefcase and silently handed her a single official document. She read, her hand trembling slightly. The Marina manager stepped forward, confusion on his face. What's going on? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. The Marina belongs to Mr. Daniels. As of this morning, gasps and murmurs spread through the lobby. Several senior members stared in stunned silence. The linen jacket man stood back near the staircase, expression unreadable. One bold member tried to recover. Mr. Daniels, perhaps we could schedule a meeting to discuss future plans. Marcus glanced around coolly. Plans are already in motion. Mr. Collins gave a slight nod. Without another word, Marcus walked deeper into the clubhouse. Conversations dropped to hushed whispers as he passed, the weight of sudden authority following every step. The next afternoon, a formal emergency meeting of the Crestline Yacht Club board had been called. Marcus entered the grand conference room, Mr. Collins by his side. The room quieted instantly. The chairman cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Daniels, this meeting is for board members only. Mr. Collins handed him a single sheet of legal documentation. The chairman scanned it, color draining from his face. This can't be right. Marcus spoke calmly. It is. I now hold the controlling interest of this club and the Marina. As of this moment, this board is dissolved. Gasps filled the room. One board member slammed his hand on the table. This is outrageous. You can't just walk in and take everything. Marcus met his glare with serene composure. I just did. A senior board member stammered. We have procedures, bylaws. Mr. Collins replied smoothly. All satisfied. All signed. All legal. Several members sank back into their chairs, stunned. From the back of the room, the linen jacket man observed silently, arms crossed. An emboldened younger member stood him. What happens to us, the staff, the club? Marcus surveyed the room. The staff stays. The boats stay. The arrogance leaves it in the moi, certitude moi soin. The room fell into stunned silence. Mr. Collins nodded toward Marcus. It's done. Marcus turned to leave. As he reached the door, the linen jacket man called after him softly. You won. Marcus paused briefly, then replied without turning. I didn't come to win. I came to change it. With that, he exited, leaving behind a room full of silent, powerless figures. The following morning, Marcus walked the familiar path along the docks. The marina was quiet, the air crisp and clean. A young deckhand nervously approached, clutching a folded piece of paper. Mr. Daniels I wanted to ask if I could apply for the new Marina apprentice program. I heard you were creating opportunities. Marcus stopped, studying him. What's your name? Tyler, sir. Marcus nodded slowly. Work hard. Respect everyone. Stay humble. Tyler's shoulders straightened slightly. Yes, sir. I will. As Marcus walked on, two staff members watched from a distance. He stopped to talk to Tyler, one whispered. He never even acknowledged anyone before. The other replied. Things really are changing. Marcus paused briefly at the edge of the dock, gazing out at the horizon. The soft sound of water against the pilings filled the silence. Without fanfare, he continued walking, leaving behind a subtle but undeniable shift in the air. Later that afternoon, Marcus was walking past the maintenance shed when a small group of young staff hesitantly approached. Tyler led them. Mr. Daniels, sir? We were wondering, Tyler began, glancing nervously at his coworkers. Would you consider meeting with us? Just for some advice. A few of us want to learn how you did it. Marcus paused, studying the group. They stood awkwardly, hands in pockets or nervously clutching clipboards. Why, Marcus asked simply. A young woman stepped forward. Because no one ever thought someone like us could be more. You proved otherwise. Marcus gave the faintest of nods. Tomorrow, sunrise. Be ready to listen. Yet, sir, Tyler said quickly. Relief and excitement clear in his voice. From a distance, two older members watched. They're gathering around him now, one whispered. The second nodded grimly. Not out of fear anymore, but respect. Marcus continued walking, the quiet conversation fading behind him as the sun dipped low over the water. The sun hovered just above the horizon, casting long amber streaks across the water. Marcus stood at the far end of the dock, hands behind his back, watching the calm waves lap against the polished hulls of the anchored yachts. From behind him came soft footsteps. Tyler approached quietly. Mr. Daniels, everyone's waiting. Marcus nodded, turning slowly toward the clubhouse. As they walked back, members and staff watched in respectful silence. Conversations hushed at his passing. Later that evening, Marcus addressed a small gathering of staff, junior members, and a few humbled senior members in the grand hall. The chandelier lights glinted off dark wood and polished brass. Marcus spoke with calm assurance. Leadership isn't about noise. It's not about titles or appearances. It's about action when no one is watching, respect when no one demands it, and humility when you hold the highest power. He paused, letting the words settle. This club will change, not with threats, not with exclusion, but with opportunity. Every voice matters now. We succeed together, or not at all. Polite but heartfelt applause followed. Tyler exchanged a glance of pride with the young woman from the maintenance crew. Marcus stepped away from the podium. Outside the tall windows, the marina reflected the golden glow of dusk. The golden glow of dusk lingered over the water as Marcus disappeared into the night. The marina, once a symbol of exclusion, now stood silent, transformed. They said he would never belong here, the narrator reflected. They laughed. They whispered. They dismissed him. Yet he never shouted, Never forced, never demanded. Marcus Daniels simply walked in, stayed silent, and shifted the current by being who he was. A gentle pause followed. Now those who mocked him stand silent. Those who doubted now follow his lead. And those who watched in fear now step forward with pride. The tide has turned. Another soft breath. At Unveiled Wealth, we share stories like this to remind you real leadership doesn't announce itself. It just shows up and changes everything. If this touched you, share your journey. Were you ever underestimated? Did you rise when others thought you couldn't? We want to hear it. Join our community of silent changemakers. This is Unveiled Wealth, where power wears silence.